I remember the day like it was etched into my bones. Every word, every sneer, every dismissive glance still echoing in my mind. I was just a kid then, standing in the middle of the family farm, clutching my dream like a fragile flame in a hurricane of skepticism. They called it ridiculous, impossible, and worst of all, a waste of time. My own blood told me I'd fail, that I was an embarrassment to the family. The dream? To heal the land, to turn barren, lifeless soil into vibrant, thriving ecosystems. Sounds noble, right? But my family, farming folk who'd been working these fields for generations, saw it as a reckless fantasy. I told them I wanted to develop sustainable, regenerative farming methods, ways to nurture the soil, not just extract from it. They laughed behind my back, called me a dreamer, and told me I'd never amount to anything but a fool chasing hippie nonsense. And so I set out, alone, to pursue what no one believed possible. I was called naive. I was told I'd fail. But I believed. I refused to give up, pushing through every harsh winter, every setback, until my ideas, why experiments, began to take root. But the real trial came when a corporate agronomist, someone entrusted with the industry's future, stole my research, claimed my findings as their own, sabotaged my reputation, and branded me a fraud. Suddenly, I was cast out of the scientific community, labeled an outsider. The very field I dedicated my life to rejected me, humiliated and betrayed. For years, I kept my head down. I buried my dreams under the weight of rejection. But deep inside, that flame never died. Instead, I channeled it into something more tangible. Permaculture, a hands-on, practical approach to restoration that many still sneered at as hippie nonsense. I spent years traveling, studying, designing, and transforming. I bought over abandoned, infertile lands, turning them into lush, productive ecosystems. I worked tirelessly, fighting skeptics, battling droughts and financial hardships. Every barren acre I revived was a silent rebuke to every doubter, a testament to the truth I knew deep in my soul. And then, everything changed. Slowly, the world caught up. Governments invested in sustainable communities, fought for projects I led. My work proved that regeneration wasn't just a concept, it was a necessity. My land became an example of resilience, a beacon of hope for communities that had forgotten how to dream. I built farms that fed thousands, restored ecosystems that seemed beyond saving, and finally earned the recognition I'd been denied for so long. But the ultimate test was yet to come. Today, I returned to the place I left behind, ready to show my family what their doubts had merely destroyed. I parked my truck on the old dirt driveway, the same one I'd run down as a boy, dreaming of greener future. The house looked smaller somehow, the land still the same, but I carried in my heart a quiet, unshakable conviction. As I stepped out, I watched their faces. My father, with his weathered hands and skeptical eyes. My mother, who'd once told me my dreams were fool's errands. Siblings, cousins, all gathered. Some hesitating, some outright dismissing my presence. They hadn't seen the farms I'd built, the ecosystems I'd restored, or the communities I'd uplifted. They only saw the boy who'd once been mocked, the hippie, the fool. That's when I decided they would see firsthand. I led them into the fields. What they saw was impossible. The land, once cracked and barren, was alive. Green shoots sprouted where nothing had grown before. Trees towered, honeybees buzzed, and streams flowed again where dust and ash once ruled. I showed them soil teeming with life, roots intertwining like a symphony beneath their feet. I explained how this all started with a simple idea: that land could heal, that people could change, that hope could grow from the most desolate places. Their faces shifted from skepticism to awe. My father's jaw tightened, and for a moment, his eyes glistened, maybe with regret, maybe with something he couldn't quite name. My mother, silent, looked as if she'd been hit in the chest by the truth of what I'd built. A monument to perseverance and faith. Then I turned to them and spoke, soft but resolute. I was called a fool. I was told I'd fail. But I never gave up on what I knew was right. I fought for this land, for the communities that depend on it, and for the future we all deserve. What seemed hippie nonsense was just another way of saying hope. And hope is the one thing no one can take from you. And in that moment, I saw it. The understanding, the realization that the doubts, the insults, they were merely echoes of their own limitations, their own fears. Their mocking was a reflection of what they couldn't see beyond their small world, their narrow minds. I stepped back, letting them absorb the truth. The land I had built was a living testament, not just to me, but to everyone who dared to believe in change. Because I knew, finally, that this was more than just land reborn. It was a lesson in resilience, faith, and refusal to be broken by the cynics. I left them standing there, silent, humbled. And as I got into my truck, I looked back at the flourishing land, at the thriving ecosystems, an ecosystem of hope. I realized then that the greatest revenge isn't anger or bitterness, but transformation. Not just of land, but of hearts. Because I was once mocked for chasing a ridiculous dream. But I proved that persistence, passion, and unwavering belief in what's right can turn the impossible into reality. And most importantly, I learned that sometimes the greatest victory is not just planting seeds and harvesting crops, but planting the seeds of change in even the most hardened hearts. That day, I left my family not just with a lush landscape behind me, but with a deeper understanding. The land and the spirit can both be restored, and that redemption begins when you refuse to give up, no matter how hard the road. I came home victorious, not just because I proved them wrong, but because I proved to myself that a dream fueled by resilience can change the world. And I know without a doubt that this is only the beginning.